those are my alleged prepared comments. If you all have any particular questions, you may ask them, and if you don't have to. There's a hand in the back. Yes, sir. Well, the last statistics in California were they had the money to actually maintain statistics. About 3,000, I think it was about 3,000 overdoses a year, people who die from OD. So what the bill would do, there's a couple of states that have this exact type of legislation. What the bill would do is people who call on behalf of a friend and or the person who's suffering from the OD, if they call 911 or another emergency personnel, cops could not prosecute them for possession or the other things. And that's my understanding. Deaths. Yes, ma'am.
It's just too easy for many of them to come back because they violated parole. The parole laws are kind of unrealistic. Do you see any way of changing that, or is that not?
Well, I mean, good question. You know, it's obviously I couldn't get into a lot of details of everything, but the one area that there's been some reforms done in the criminal justice system is around parole. A couple of years ago, they passed a law, excuse me, to minimize the numbers of, I mean, it's been the biggest cost driver of the correctional system is the reincarceration of folks who violate parole. They did do some reforms to it 2 years ago. This new piece of legislation that's just been passed, not enacted, passed, would in fact prohibit the return to prison for parole violators unless the person was a lifer. So, which is a major change in correctional policy. I understand that courts will now be doing parole revocations instead of the board, and you can't be revoked back to prison. I assume you get revoked back to the county jails. What's interesting about this realignment, just briefly, is that it changes the dynamics, the power dynamics in Sacramento, because up to now, the CCPOA has been very influential in terms of the power of that good union in terms of correctional policies. To the extent that we're shifting a certain number of inmates to the locals, it will give, I think, in the long term, more power to the local sheriffs and local probation officers. So we're going to see two sort of quasi-fiefdoms competing for, similar dollars. So, yes, sir.
My opinion is the local law enforcement has too much power already. And you're talking about reforming incarceration. That's at the end of this criminal justice process, not at the beginning. How do we reform the laws that give California district attorneys virtual prosecutorial immunity to selectively enforce the law? And likewise, the CCPOA has done a great job of creating and passing laws that allow you virtual impossibility to find out about bad crimes.
Right. Well, two separate questions. One being CCPOA wasn't so much. Yeah, they were involved in overturning Copley. Copley was the decision to deal with essentially when we have a secret police in the state of California, secret police force in the state of California. It's impossible to find out information about misconduct and the like. But we actually, the ACLU sponsored legislation 3 years ago to try to open up the process of police review for misconduct hearings. We lost.
Can you remind people what CCPOA is?
CCPOA, I'm sorry, are the correctional officers in the state prison, or the union. With respect to DA's authority to bring cases, that's their constitutional, as far as I know, that's their constitutional ability to choose what cases to bring. I mean, the role of, as I think some of our affiliates are doing, the role of us is to reach out on the local levels and put some pressure, political pressure, on who gets elected in terms of the DAs. San Francisco had a relatively progressive DA that happens to be now the Attorney General, who happened to be also, last time I checked, was the sister of the ex-executive director of the Northern California Board. And so she, she exercised her authority in what we presume to be a more intelligent way. But trying to trying to attack the authority of the DAs is problematic, politically problematic.
My understanding in other states, they don't have the same amount of prosecutorial immunity. Has the ACLU California looked into, how other states deal with this issue?
I don't know, but I will try to find out. Yes, ma'am.
Tomorrow, will they only be addressing the two areas that previously discussed, or are they visiting more than one topic?
I leave that to my wonderful folks who are involved.
You will be talking about sentencing reform and the two bills that Francisco mentioned.
Thank you.
Dos más. Uno. Oh my God. Yes.
Francisco.
You don't get to ask questions.
But I just want to clarify here. So, two questions. Do you think that if Brown's tax extension initiative does make it onto the ballot, that it stands a good chance of passing? And related to that, would you encourage ACLU supporters and members to vote for it?
Well, it's not my position to make decisions where the board makes those decisions.
Your opinion.
My opinion. Well, assuming it gets on the ballot, what will be voted on will be a continuation of the tax increases that were enacted 2 or 3 years, whenever it was enacted. That money is going to be directed specifically to K through 12 education, because the one thing that wasn't cut in this budget currently was K through 12 education. Not that they haven't been, my daughter got a pink slip, so it's not like teachers aren't getting. Yeah. And the rest of the money is intended to go to the law enforcement community under this new criminal realignment proposal. So, to the extent that the initiative, assuming it's on the ballot, doesn't pass, the consequences will be significant and will have even bigger consequences to the kind of things that the ACLU does. So, I will vote for it. That's the best as I can tell you.
Thank you.
Uno más, yes.
When, in February, when Judge Wilkins from the Ninth Circuit came to inspect San Quentin's death chamber to see if the reforms that he had ordered were going to be inspected, it was reported in the press the next day that the government officials are eager to start the executions again. And I'm wondering, with Jerry Brown and Kamala Harris both being in opposition to that, how does that happen with the authorities, where the chief administrative and judicial officer of the state opposed to that penalty? What power do they actually have over whoever these authorities are that are eager to commence execution?
Well, both of the AG and the Attorney General are personally opposed to the death penalty. Both have indicated that they, given their executive authority, will continue to enforce the law. What can Jerry Brown do? Jerry Brown could, of course, commute all 700 or 800 people on death row. That's his personal authority. So the governor of Illinois did that a few years ago, ended up resulting in the repeal of the death penalty just recently in Illinois. Whether the governor at this moment is focused on this issue, who knows? But if the budget situation continues to be as horrific as it is, one of the things we have made very clear and pointed out to our legislative leaders and to the governors, prior and current, is that if you repeal the death penalty, the state would save $1 billion over 5 years. You would not have, you would not have to build up San Quentin, which is $400 million in bonds and tax monies over the long period of time, and it's a savings of about $125 million a year in state cost to house people. So, you know, it's fair to say that it's not high, I don't think, on their grand thinking right now. But if the situation continues as dire as it may be, we have pushed for it in the past, and you can bet your bottom dollar we will continue to push for the elimination of the death penalty in the state of California. All right, guys, I appreciate it. Thank you very much.